Hi, my name's Starsky and welcome to From the Studio on Clubbing TV. In this episode, I'm going to be taking a look at a really portable but powerful synth. It's the Roland Jupiter Xm. All the synths you've just heard in that track come from this. It's got 5 parts, it's got 4 synth parts and a rhythm part, and it's got 256 voices, which means you're never going to run out. It's got emulations of some classic analog synths and an emulation of their classic XV5080 digital range, and all these are really rich, high quality sounds, and they're produced by something called the Zencore engine, which is compatible with the AX Edge Keytar, the Phantom, which is the sort of flagship of the Roland range, and groove boxes like the MC101, and plus there's the Zenology Pro software as well. So this Zencore engine is now compatible across the whole range of Roland's products. So all in all, it's a really well-rounded package. This is quite compact. It's the baby brother of the Jupiter X. The Jupiter X has got 5 octaves of full-size keys. This has got 37 mini keys. So not as convenient to play as the Jupiter X, but much more convenient if you want to take it out on a bus or stick it in a bag. The Jupiter X has also got a few more sliders and knobs, so it's slightly different interface. Obviously it's a bit bigger, it's got some different flashing lights, but essentially it's exactly the same synth engine underneath. And with this you've got built-in speakers at the front and at the side, and it's also battery operated as well. If you look at the back, we've got a compartment here for 8 AA batteries, so you really can play it on the beach or in the woods or on the bus. So let's plug it in and start listening to some of the presets. As I say, there's thousands of sounds in this, and there's different ways of playing them, but the main mode is called scene mode, and that gives you access to the 4 synth parts and the rhythm part, and you can layer them, you can play them all at the same time, you can split them across the keyboard. So let's just start off with one of them, shall we? Now let's put a rhythm track on that. So there's an awful lot going on in there, isn't there? So from just pressing 2 keys. And you can hear all those effects bouncing around in the background there, can't you? We've got delays, chorus, reverb and drive. And each of the 5 sounds can have their own reverb, their own delay, their own chorus. So you can get amazingly rich, full sort of soundscapes, but it can get really messy if you're not careful. Let's take a listen to some others then. All very nice, and that one was using some of the vintage tones, so let's go and look at the different sound engines we've got in this. Oh, you've just caught me taking a sip from this very attractive looking, great value and high quality mug. Very nice it is too. Anyway, back to the sounds. It's got the Jupiter 8, the Juno 106, the JX8P and the SH101, and they're all old 1980s really classic analog synths. Plus it's got the XV5080, which is a rack mount unit, absolutely jam-packed with thousands of really high quality patches. And it's got some of the RD piano range as well. Really rich, nice, professional sounding pianos. And he plays one that's covered in strings, so I need to get the strings off there, so I need to just listen to the piano part. To listen to the individual parts, we go into part mode. And we can see along here, we've got 5 different parts that we could play. 1, 2, 3, 4 on the rhythm part. And just to listen to part 1, we turn all the others off, so they're all muted now. And we're editing part 1, and we're on RD Expressive Bright Piano. with a lot of reverb and delay. Let's quickly go into the XV range as well and see what we've got in there. Let's find something that isn't a piano, shall we? How many sounds there are in total? So that's 896 in the XV range. And somehow he finds another piano by random in all those 900 tones. So let's try and find something else. Just trying to pick out some really complex and interesting ones that you couldn't possibly do on a standard analog. Apparently that was an ambient flute, it says here. So there's a string sound. Sounds nothing like a synth, actually sounds like real strings. And that's because these sounds aren't made from your sort of standard analog oscillators. They're made from PCM samples, which are really, really tiny samples of the actual instrument. So an actual sample of a trombone or a flute or an oboe or a string section. So you can get orchestral sounds like here's an oboe. If you're interested in that sort of thing, I have to say I'm not. Oh, and some classic 80s orchestral hits. So you get the idea, the XV80's got all sorts of different sounds in there. It's got ambient pads, it's got strange effects to really authentic orchestral tones like trombones, muted trumpets and bassoons. If that's your thing, have to say it's not mine. So let's take a look now at the Jupiter 8. And it instantly comes up with brass just to wind me up. Let's see what else we've got. More brass. That's better. Yes, so we've got really nice Jupiter 8 sounds in this. We've also got the Juno 106, the JX8P, and the SH101. You've got to love an SH101 bass. So those analog emulations, they're really good. If you had an SH101 or a JX8P or a Juno 106 or whatever in the studio next to you, I'd be doubtful whether you could really tell much of a difference, if any at all. But let's take a look now at this arpeggio and see what we can do with different rhythms and patterns and sequences. So just going back to patch 1 that we played earlier, let's put the arpeggio on. Let's play the same note slightly differently. And the patterns become more complicated as I play more notes or play more intricate patterns with my fingers. And then we can put a rhythm track on that. So we go into part and we put rhythm on. Now if we take the synth parts off and just listen to the drums, I'm playing just one note and we're getting a really simple beat. And as I play different things, the beat changes. And if you're happy with that beat, you can basically take the last beat that played and put it into a step editor. And that goes into your little sequencer. And this is just like a standard sequencer. You can choose which notes play and what velocities they're playing. And if you do want a little bit more control over things, you can start from first principles. You can pick your drum kit, then you can pick your rhythm or your starting rhythm, then you can pick your type of arpeggio you're going to use, and then you can start building your scene from there. So let's start off by picking a rhythm. And you can hear there, those sounds are absolutely impeccable. The only thing you can't do though is actually go in and edit the sounds themselves. And if we go into the drum part, we can see we've got a TR-808 we're playing there. And we can have a TR-909. That's another TR-909. You've got them with or without compression. TR-808 with compression. The TR-707 and the 727, which are really popular for Latin type grooves. I think all those classic Roland drum machines are in here. Here's the CR-78, which was the sort of classic little wooden box from the 70s. That's a bit meatier than I was expecting. Here's the 606 as well. And change the rhythm again. And now let's add an arpeggio, and you can select the type of arpeggio it plays. There's a menu here with 55 different types of arpeggios. Some of the I arpeggios, so they will do something more intelligently as you play more things with your fingers, and some of them are just sort of standard. But let's put something on. That was a bit meatier and a bit cooler than I was expecting. Let's try and just, I don't know, just go into that maybe and just change the drum sounds and change the arpeggio and just have a play around with it for a second. So it gives you loads of different starting points. I've only just scratched the surface of it here. It's a different way of approaching writing a track. It's a different way of approaching synthesis in a way, because you've got all these sounds in here that are quite difficult to edit unless you really know what you're doing. But all in all, you know, is it for you? If you're interested in this, I'd go to the Roland Cloud website and check out their Zenology Pro software, because that is essentially the synth brain you get in here, and you get access to all the sounds you've got in here, plus all that deep editing. You don't get the arpeggio, but if you're working from your DAW, you probably don't need that anyway. Logic's got its own drummer that can create patterns for you anyway. So it's a bit of a weird one, this, because you have access to what this can do for $10 a month from the cloud. But if you need portability, you need to take those sounds elsewhere, this is absolutely amazing. It packs in so much into this sort of small footprint that it's really, really worth checking out if you need something that's portable, that you can take to gigs, that's got its own speakers, that you can put batteries in. I don't think there's anything else quite as deep as this. And if you enjoyed that, you can check it out whenever you like on our Clubbing TV official YouTube channel on the From the Studio playlist. And if you've got any questions, pop them in the comments and I'll see what I can do to answer them. And also don't forget, you can check out my Starsky Carr YouTube channel, where I've got a lot more in-depth and technical reviews and walkthroughs of synths, and some extra bits on the Jupiter XM and the System 8 as well. So I'll see you in the next episode of From the Studio.